After a workplace incident at Irving's Halifax shipyard. Home reno. Could outdated long-term care facilities become homes for someone else? And skyrocketing sales. A Cape Breton business takes off, helping others launch into space.
One of the coldest nights so far this winter across the province, but lots of sunshine and recovering nicely on Wednesday ahead of our next system Thursday. Your full forecast is coming up.
Good evening. A police investigation is now underway after a worker at the Irving Halifax shipyard died on the job. Just before noon on Monday, police say a 43-year-old man was struck by a piece of equipment. He was pronounced dead at the site. Along with the police, the province's Labor Department is also investigating. The department says a stop work order has been issued and a review is underway of existing safe work procedures around snow removal processes and mechanical assessment of the equipment involved. Meanwhile, Unifor, the union that represents 1,100 workers at the shipyard, says grief counselors have been sent to the site. No further details about the incident have been released. The Nova Scotia government has promised to replace 46 seniors' homes over the next 8 years. These are facilities that are no longer deemed suitable as long-term care facilities. But as Jean Laroche reports, they could be a home for someone else.
The issue came up at a legislature committee just last week. It was almost an offhand comment by a senior executive of the company that runs Mountain Lee Lodge in Bridgetown in the Annapolis Valley. Construction has started on its replacement, but the administrator told the committee the old building still has plenty of life left in it.
The department has been very generous in investing a lot of dollars as things were projected to, like the boiler room and flooring and new windows, a new roof, etc. So the building is not good to serve seniors. It's not a good nursing home because the space, the bathroom situation, etc. But it could be repurposed for something else, and we're very, very interested in seeing what we could do with that.
Now, she said one of the things under consideration was turning the facility into a housing complex. The province is interested. It wants to see a proposal.
We wouldn't want to put too much time and effort into anything unless we could see the economic and technical feasibility study. And then if it looks like it's a viable option, we would be 100% supportive. Again, we've got programs to support that conversion as long as there's an affordability component, and we would want to see it repurposed for housing.
Those programs have helped spark a number of conversions. People, for example, are living in a former hotel in New Glasgow that the province chipped in to convert a couple of years back. And the old Wheelhouse Hotel in Lunenburg is being renovated right now. The hope is there's enough room for 10 to 12 one-bedroom apartments. Although Bridgetown is smaller than Lunenburg and tiny compared to New Glasgow, it still needs housing.
There's 100% need for more housing. We have people that are living in multi-generational type situations right now that they would prefer not to be. They're raising small kids and they could be living with their grandparents, aunt and uncles. So that there is a strong need. It's just the road to get there is difficult.
He's now part of the committee looking at the possibility of Mountain Lee Lodge finding a second life as a housing complex. The hope is the committee will figure all that out by this fall. Jean Laroche, CBC News, Halifax.
Opposition politicians are accusing the government of trying to duck scrutiny over a recent Auditor General report, a charge government MLAs deny. The report last week raised concerns about millions of dollars the government has spent to purchase and renovate an incomplete hotel so it can be transformed into a patient care facility. Normally, the legislature's Public Accounts Committee meets the week after an AG report is released to discuss the findings, but that is not happening this week. The NDP House Leader Susan LeBlanc says MLAs were told government officials would not be available to meet until March 27th.
There's no question that this project, the Hogan Court Health Transitional Care Facility project, has been a very poor use of healthcare dollars and a bad deal for Nova Scotians. The government has spent hundreds of millions of dollars with no oversight in the name of expediency. And the problem with that is that it lacks accountability and it's open to abuse.
The NDP and Liberals called for an emergency meeting this week but did not get the necessary unanimous consent. Tory MLA Nolan Young says his caucus has no control over the scheduling of witnesses. He says the emergency motion from the opposition would have left out several witnesses the Auditor General recommended calling. Some first responders in the Annapolis Royal area are raising concerns about wait times for paramedics to arrive at emergencies. With more emergency rooms in the area closed regularly, they say there aren't as many ambulances in the area. And Alex Cranton, the deputy chief of the Annapolis Royal Volunteer Fire Department, says that's putting too much pressure on volunteer first responders.
I think the volunteer firefighters have enough on their plate right now. I think asking more of them would be too much. We're not only responding to medical calls, but we're also doing motor vehicle accidents, without entrapments, car fires, house fires. We're doing a lot now. You're asking a lot of volunteer fire service, especially when you count their training hours and their volunteer hours outside of fire calls. I think asking more of them to do a job that they're unpaid for isn't reasonable.
I'll talk to Alex Cranton about the strain on the healthcare system that he's seeing in his part of the province. That's our Newsmaker interview just after 6:30. Well, the cleanup continues in Cape Breton Regional Municipality as they try to remove massive amounts of snow. Nearly 200 centimeters fell across the municipality over the last 2 weeks, and that's led to some pretty significant snowbanks. Plow operators have been working around the clock to clear and widen roads. Right now, snow is being trucked to various sites throughout the CBRM.
Yeah, so we've had a lot of snow, and it's not snow that we can just push off to the side of the road. It's snow that we do have to remove and put in different areas. So last week we did receive federal approval to dump this snow into the Sydney Harbour. So that's where all the snow from the Sydney area is going. And then there is a spot on a CBRM site in Glace Bay, and then also a site over on the north side to get rid of snow on the north side.
McQueen says right now their focus is on removing snow from sidewalks and clearing storm drains ahead of the expected rainfall this weekend. Rainfall this weekend, but boy, this past weekend, it was actually quite nice to see some sun.
Beautiful, absolutely. And again, winter is the focus here in the short term, but as you mentioned, Tom, rain lurking for the weekend and the later this week. That is definitely going to be the story as we turn the page into the latter half of the week. But first and foremost, winter, as I said, not going anywhere. Clear skies and a beautiful day today. Finally some sunshine, which is great. It feels like we've had more sunshine in the last handful of days than we had most of January. And it's thanks to this area of high pressure that we'll see more sunshine tomorrow. Here is the low that is going to be working its way in, increasing our clouds a little bit into the afternoon tomorrow, but more so tomorrow night and into Thursday, when it will be bringing some messy mix of snow and some ice pellets and maybe even a little bit of freezing rain. Tomorrow morning, it is going to be, if not the coldest, then certainly one of the coldest mornings in your backyard that we've had so far this winter. Widespread temperatures are going to be in the minus 15 to minus 18 range. Low-lying areas, Colchester, Cumberland, Pictou, Antigonish, edging into Hants will drop into the minus 20 to 22 range tomorrow morning. It is going to be awfully cold, and you can see across Cape Breton, a little bit of a northwest wind keeping temperatures balmy there near minus 12. Also a little bit milder there and through the Tri-County area. Despite the cold start, we will warm up quite nicely tomorrow. Again, the sunshine will help. Minus 1 to minus 4 will be our range across the province. Now, looking ahead to that Thursday system, not expecting a lot of snow with this system, but the timing is a little problematic. Thursday afternoon, the 103, the 101, the 102, the Halifax metro area, Eastern Shore and into Cape Breton will get into a bit of a messy mix here Thursday afternoon. A trace to as much as 5 centimeters. Looks like about all will muster given the ice pellets mixing in with this and perhaps some freezing rain. So tricky travel Thursday evening, but then this one's gone. And again, the focus will then, Tom, become that rainmaker for the weekend. How much rain, how warm will it get? With so many snowbanks and storm drains covered again, that's one we'll be ironing out certainly over the next few days with more details.
Something to be thinking about for sure. Okay, Ryan, thank you so much. We'll talk a little later. Well, Canada's annual inflation rate slowed in January. It's now 2.9%, down from 3.4% in December. A drop in the price of gas was the main factor pushing the rate down. Grocery prices are cooling as well. High mortgage interest costs continue to drive inflation up. Rents are also a factor. Economists say rent prices will continue to go up due to population growth and a housing shortage. But they say they expect the Bank of Canada to begin cutting its key lending rate by June. Cannabis has been legal in Canada for 5 years, so why are some employers still testing for it? Andrew Sampson explains.
These days, it's perfectly legal for someone to enjoy cannabis after work, whether they're having a quick vape in the comfort of their home, knocking back an edible, or even sipping on a THC beverage. But for some organizations, cannabis use is still a deal breaker. Pre-employment testing remains common in many fields that are considered safety critical, including the transport, oil and gas, and manufacturing sectors. Even though some argue that what they do in their private life shouldn't affect what happens when they're on the clock. One problem with testing for THC is that it's hard to prove impairment.
Habitual recreational users of cannabis, like people who smoke a joint in the evening when they get home from work, oftentimes will test positive for cannabis, even though they may not believe that they're impaired at work.
The most accurate way to test is through a blood test, but experts say urine tests are still the standard. The problem, however, is that urine has the longest detection time, and THC can remain detectable for up to 30 days, long after impairment has passed. This means that many workers often have no choice but to abstain or risk losing out on a potential gig.
One by one, please.
Since marijuana was legalized in 2018, much has changed. According to Stats Canada, we've gone from having just 182 outlets for legal cannabis in the beginning to well over 3,000 as of the first quarter of 2023. In 2021, nearly 1/3 of Nova Scotians aged 15 or over reported using cannabis in the previous 12 months. Those numbers suggest that nearly 1 in 3 Nova Scotians might not be eligible to work certain jobs, all on the basis of their recreational habits. In Nova Scotia, 2 companies that do still test for cannabis are Irving Shipbuilding and Halifax Water. Irving says that in safety-sensitive roles, all individuals given a conditional offer of employment must be tested to ensure they're fit for duty. Halifax Water has a similar policy, but says all potential workers, period, must be tested prior to being hired. If they fail, their job offer is rescinded. The organization says that it respects employees' personal time, but that their primary focus is on the safety of their employees and the public. There are, however, some possible exceptions. If someone is using cannabis for medical purposes or has an addiction, they may be able to argue that rescinding a job offer is discriminatory. But declining to hire someone because they enjoy using cannabis recreationally is still perfectly valid.
Sure, there's generally no obligation on an employer to hire anyone. So it's quite easy for employers to make the determination that they don't want to hire people who are habitual or, general cannabis users.
So, overall, what's the bottom line? Is it legal for companies to test for cannabis use even though it's legal to enjoy it? As it turns out, the answer is generally yes. It might not always seem fair, but it is above board. And even though attitudes towards cannabis use may be changing, most policies have generally remained the same since legalization. So if you want to put your best foot forward on the job hunt, you may have to make some sacrifices.
The easiest thing, the safest thing, the way to mitigate risk in terms of securing your employment is obviously to not use cannabis recreationally.
Andrew Sampson, CBC News, Halifax.
Well, throughout the month, CBC has brought you stories to mark African Heritage Month, and we bring you another one tonight. In the town of Kentville, a Black father and son team are among many members who have family connections in their local fire department. The CBC's Paul Palmer has their story.
Sam Adams has been a firefighter for 31 years, working with several different departments. But when he came to the Kentville department 4 years ago, it meant he joined his son, Sean. He says it was quite a moment when his then 18-year-old son let him know he was becoming a firefighter too.
Well, I thought it was great. I mean, in fact, it was funny because he stopped by my house and he said, Dad, I joined the fire department. Not Dad, I'm thinking about joining the fire department. So I was proud.
The father and son have now answered hundreds of fire calls together. They say they do worry about each other, but they don't let their relationship get in the way, and they rarely work shoulder to shoulder.
My father has raised me to be a very community-oriented person, and just providing a service and know that you're seeing people on their worst day, and you're just trying to do what you can to make it better.
To say family matters here at the Kentville Volunteer Fire Department is really an accurate statement. The department has 50 volunteer firefighters. Sean and Sam Adams are not the only ones who are related. In fact, 1/3 of those members have a direct family connection.
I think a lot of the time it's just a matter of you grow up with that. For children, sons and daughters especially, they see their father or mother going off to alarms all times of day and night, and it becomes part of the family fabric. They know that dinners are going to be ruined and so on, and it's just they want to follow in the footsteps.
Sean Adams is now 22 years old and is employed as a dispatcher at the Communications Center in Kentville. His father recently returned to school at Acadia, where he's now enrolled at the Divinity College and is hoping to become a pastor. Sam Adams says he's proud of his son for following in his footsteps as a firefighter, and he hopes they can continue to work together for several more years.
We've always had a strong bond, but I think it's even getting stronger with us both being in the fire department, because we both have the same interest in wanting to serve our community.
Paul Palmeter, CBC News, Kentville.
More than 100 people gathered in Halifax over the long weekend to remember missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people. It was the 4th annual march from Peace and Friendship Park to the Public Gardens. The event included a speech from Gukyus Wokyus, her niece is Cassidy Bernard, who was found dead at her Cape Breton home in 2018.
It's horrible how they die. Some of them died in police custody, some of them died at home. Cassidy died with her twins by her side.
The red dresses will hang at the Public Gardens gazebo for 2 weeks. A business in Cape Breton is helping others launch into space. Protospace MFG creates custom orders for components used in space exploration. The business is so busy that it's grown at least 50% in the last 6 months. Amy McNeil reports.
Machine parts, precision cut sheet metal, and electronics. All things made by Sydney's Protospace MFG. Doug Milburn is the chair and co-founder of Protospace MFG.
And we've done stuff all the way to toolboxes, which might not seem like very much, but when you got a rocket that's in a countdown and they stop the countdown, they don't get your red Canadian Tire thing. It's very, very specialized stuff. So it's a really, really broad gamut that we cover.
And liftoff. Protospace MFG created hardware that was used in this launch from last week. Milburn says they're the fastest manufacturer in the electronics and technology industries, and the need for a quick turnaround on products is vital for the industry.
We make parts in 2 to 3 days. And in the aerospace world, got to appreciate that supply chains choke down for various reasons. And most of their alternatives, their traditional supply chains, a 10 to 20 week world.
Since all of the items are custom built, the amount of money it takes to create them varies.
That's a really tough question. That's like asking how much does a car cost or how much does a house cost. It is all over the map.
He says small jobs could range from $100 and large jobs could cost as much as hundreds of thousands. Almost all of the top aerospace companies order from Protospace MFG, such as Boeing, Airbus, and NASA. Having these large companies as buyers helps Protospace MFG grow locally.
Since made it into a separate division, it's grown 50 to 60% in the last 6 months. So, yeah, it's major growth area for us.
Milburn says they plan on growing in the direction the market takes them. In other words, the sky or space is the limit. Amy McNeil, CBC News, Sydney.
Coming up, the U.S. vetoes a resolution at the UN Security Council calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Ryan's coming up next with your full weather forecast right after this quick break. All right, back with Ryan now to talk weather. And, you know, it was cool out there today, but the sun made it actually quite nice to be around, like sort of a picture perfect winter day in many ways.
It's the trade-off, right? When we get the cloud cover, we've had a mild winter for sure, December and January especially mild, but that brings often cloudy skies, a little dreary.
Some snow sometimes.
That's right. And then, of course, when you get the high pressure, you get the sunshine, but you get the cold. So it is the trade-off. I think most people would trade a few days of cold for some sun, and we're certainly going to be doing that again tomorrow.
Okay.
Temperatures, as I mentioned, will be even colder tomorrow morning, more widespread anyway than they were this morning, but they were pretty chilly this morning. Have a look at our lows this morning. Widespread minus double digits, and yeah, a few of those low-lying areas, the Malay Falls station from Sheet Harbor, the Collegeville station in the Antigonish County area, those dipped into the minus 20s, as did Upper Stewiacke. Those are a slam dunk to do that again tomorrow morning. Same range as well.
Deep freeze, yeah.
Minus 20 to 24 for those low-lying areas in the north and east. And we'll see more widespread cold, I think more widespread minus 15 to 18 across the province for tomorrow morning. High temperatures out there today were anywhere from minus 2 to minus 6, and that's going to be the big difference again tomorrow as well. We're going to warm up more than we did today thanks to those light winds and that sunshine helping us to warm up this time of year. Temps already starting to slide, as you can see there, already back into the minus double-digit range at the Collegeville station in Antigonish. Now, as we look at the northwest winds, those have certainly been pesky today, and you can see they're still sustained pretty widespread 20 plus, and we're looking at those gusts in the 40 to 50 kilometer per hour range right now. So that is certainly looking pretty chilly wind chills if you are heading out, certainly already feeling into the minus double-digit range and closer to minus 20. Those onshore flurries for Cape Breton have been persistent today, especially for Inverness County. Those are going to subside as we roll after midnight and the winds really start to ease for you folks. Now, this area of high pressure, again, is going to be in control as we move throughout tomorrow. Even into tomorrow night, though, we will see that cloud cover starting to work its way in thanks to this system. Still south of Bermuda, but it is sailing northward. This is mainly going to be a miss for us. Newfoundland going to get hit hard with that one again. And you can see across North America, a couple of big players on the board. One working its way onto the coast of the U.S. right now. Note that jet stream really spanning up nicely. 19 in Kansas City right now, 19 in St. Louis. And there's the cold air kind of sweeping down, helping to pick that next system up and move it in to our region. So here is how we will play out tonight in case you missed it off the top. Showing this again, widespread minus 15 to minus 18. But low-lying areas, again, minus 20 to 24. Likely here in that Colchester, Cumberland, Pictou, Antigonish, into the Eastern Shore region, edging down into parts of Hants County. Those low-lying areas, minus 20, maybe even minus 25. Can't rule it out, certainly. We saw it pretty close to that this morning, and that'll be the case again for tomorrow morning. Now, note the flurries, as we said, coming to an end here for Inverness as we move through tonight. There are those very chilly temperatures to start the day tomorrow. It's high cloud cover first, starting to fan its way into the province tomorrow afternoon. But overall, a mostly sunny day. The winds will be light southerly, 5 to as much as 15. Temperatures minus 3 to minus 4 for Cape Breton. Minus 2 to minus 3 for the Eastern Shore tomorrow with that light southerly wind. Minus 1 to minus 4 for the Fundy and Valley regions for tomorrow. As we look into the South Shore region, we'll see temperatures ranging from minus 1 to minus 3 here, and Halifax will be right around minus 2 to minus 3. Thankfully, those winds will be light tomorrow morning, so not a big wind chill, which is great. And we will see tomorrow night the clouds really thickening up. That will keep our temperatures milder, as will this enhanced easterly wind, which will be coming in ahead of this system. So this is the setup for Thursday afternoon. We're going to be seeing some wet snow working its way in along that Atlantic coastline into the metro area. This will make for a slick Thursday commute home. That snow likely mixed with a few ice pellets, maybe even some light freezing rain, especially on the western edge of this. And then this will push up into the Eastern Shore and Cape Breton. This is our best chance of seeing maybe 5 to 10 centimeters here locally. I think generally 2 to 5 for the Guysborough and Cape Breton regions, and a trace to a couple of centimeters areas, Halifax back down the South Shore. So really not looking at a big precipitation maker here by any stretch of the imagination. That one, again, will hit Newfoundland harder. This is the system we were talking about off the top of the show that we're really going to be watching for this weekend. We have a ton of snow down. The storm drains are clogged up with snow and ice. No rain is welcome rain at this point. And it's also going to come with a warm-up, Tom. So that Saturday system is going to be key, and we will obviously be keeping you posted over the next few days on just how much rain it's going to bring.
We know you will. Okay, Ryan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, up next, volunteer firefighters are sounding the alarm about a lack of ambulances in the Annapolis Royal area. We'll hear more from tonight's newsmaker right after the break. Stay with us. You are watching CBC Nova Scotia News. Some first responders in the Annapolis Royal area are raising concerns about wait times for paramedics to arrive at emergencies. They say they are watching the healthcare system crumble around them. Alex Tranton is the Deputy Chief of the Annapolis Royal Volunteer Fire Department. Sir, there was a tragic car accident last week in Litchfield. You responded to that. Can you tell us the experience of the first responders in that case?
The experience was definitely one of a kind. We waited over 2 hours for one ambulance to come, our first one being 90 minutes out. It was definitely scary on the patient's end, and it was scary on our end as well.
How often is there no emergency room, or in the case of this, no ambulance available in the Annapolis County area?
So we have two immediate hospitals in our area, Annapolis Royal and Middleton. Both right now are closed. Annapolis doesn't do any emergency calls anymore, and Middleton only sees at certain hours.
And so what kind of impact is that having on first responders like yourself?
It's having a great impact. It's taking away from our ambulance services. Our ambulances are traveling further out to meet the major hospitals such as Kentville, Halifax area. So it's stressing the ambulance quantity down in our area a lot by not allowing them to be in the immediate coverage area.
So you've been seeing those wait times creep up?
The wait times have been creeping up, and now it's becoming an everyday occurrence. It used to be every once in a while you'd have a shortage of ambulances, but now it's seeming to be an everyday thing.
You know, the government is aware of this. What do you make of the government's response to the ambulance times?
I haven't followed it too much until recently when we've been getting the major wait times, but I haven't heard any response out of the government yet. I've had some MLAs contact me that are looking to make a difference, but as far as major government, we've had no communication at all to come up with a plan, or have we even heard a plan on what they're going to do.
We are being told that the first cohort of emergency medical responders are slated to be on the job this summer, but I'm just curious, what do you think can be done in the meantime?
In the meantime, it's up to the government to make that decision. We need to have more ambulances readily available, and furthermore, we should have a hospital closer in our area. Right now, you go between Kentville and Yarmouth. We have Digby, but Digby's the same as Middleton. They're only open certain times, and it's not making it very easy on us with the ambulances having to travel out further, and the shortage of doctors is definitely another big event with us.
So from where you stand, what would you say about the state of healthcare in that part of the province?
In our area, our state of healthcare is very bad. We also had another incident here a week or so ago with a medical emergency. We waited an hour for an ambulance. Neighboring departments waited over 38 minutes within the last few days for another medical emergency. The state it's bad right now.
Is it appropriate, or is it even possible to train volunteer firefighters like yourself to do more?
I think the volunteer firefighters have enough on their plate right now. I think asking more of them would be too much. We're not only responding to medical calls, but we're also doing motor vehicle accidents, without entrapments, car fires, house fires. We're doing a lot now. You're asking a lot of the volunteer fire service, especially when you count their training hours and their volunteer hours outside of fire calls. I think asking more of them to do a job that they're unpaid for isn't reasonable.
What kind of toll, what kind of an emotional toll do you think this is taking on people, both the patients and the volunteers?
I think it's taken a great emotional toll. When you're being asked to do jobs and that are just out of your realm, it's hard on you. When you're waiting, an hour to 2 hours for an ambulance and you've got a patient with health declining, that's hard on the volunteers. They're asking volunteers to do more than what we signed up for.
And how are you doing in terms of volunteer firefighters? What are your numbers like these days?
The numbers are declining. The volunteer firefighters that we have now are the young guys are now the old guys, and we don't have the young people are now the older people. We don't have the members coming through the door like you would have had years ago with jobs being in cities and jobs being out of province. We don't have the numbers in the home communities here. And when you take healthcare out of the communities, it makes it difficult for somebody to want to move in here. Without people moving in here, we have jobs like volunteer firefighters that we can't fill.
So just in short order, what do you want to see happen?
I would like to see the province come up with a solution for this healthcare issue. I'd like to see them look at the hospitals that they've closed down, possibly opening one back up, because when they've closed these down, they've created this issue, and somebody needs to resolve it.
Would you be happy in the short term if you just got more ambulance drivers, more ambulances?
Definitely. If we could have more readily available ambulances, that would help us out a lot. Years previous, we've waited maybe 5-10 minutes, and sometimes the ambulances were on scene before us, which made our lives obviously a lot easier. But now they're waiting an hour, 2 hours, and I've heard calls before on the radio. Some people are waiting 3 to 4 hours that's taking a great toll on people, and it's unacceptable.
All right, Alex Cranton, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks, Tom.
Coming up, amid doping scandals at the Olympics and other competitions, a new company is trying to change the game. Welcome back. The International Court of Justice is continuing its hearing into whether Israel has a right to continue its occupation of lands claimed by Palestinians. Canada was scheduled to make a presentation today, but opted to maintain the position it took in a written submission made earlier. Canada says the court should not respond to a request to issue an opinion on the matter. Meanwhile, international calls continue for an immediate ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war. But as the United Nations, the U.S. has voted with the latest Security Council resolution for a ceasefire. CBC's Sasha Petrusik has more.
Fighting in Gaza continues, with civilians and local journalists caught in the crossfire. But it's the 1.5 million displaced Palestinians camped out along the southern border who seem most at risk, with Israel threatening to launch an all-out attack in search of Hamas militants.
Please raise their hand.
At the Security Council, the push is on to prevent that attack. First, an Algerian resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire.
Is a support to the Palestinians' right to life.
It was supported by everyone else on the council, but vetoed by the U.S., which says stopping the fighting now would lift pressure on Hamas to release more than 130 Israeli hostages still held in Gaza.
Demanding an immediate, unconditional ceasefire without an agreement requiring Hamas to release the hostages will not bring about a durable peace.
The U.S. proposed its own resolution for a delayed ceasefire when possible, while it tries again in Cairo to negotiate a pause in fighting between Israel and Hamas. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu rejects any ceasefire or concessions to Hamas. We will not pay any price, he told soldiers today, as he vowed to keep fighting. But the pressure on his government is growing, from Israeli protesters demanding the hostages come home now, and from the U.S., whose own demands for a ceasefire at the UN are meant to send a tougher message to Israeli leaders.
That we really are frustrated with their unwillingness to listen to us when it comes to humanitarian assistance, tactics in the war, the impending Rafah invasion.
As for Canada, Ottawa's Minister for International Development visited the Rafah crossing today.
We need an immediate ceasefire because that will enable more aid to go in.
Aid that's badly needed to prevent the starvation that's triggering stampedes whenever bags of flour make it into Gaza. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Toronto.
It's no secret surgery wait times in Canada can be long, especially for elective procedures. Those delays, which can last months, have a growing number of patients and doctors turning to private clinics. But that can be expensive, and some people are taking extraordinary steps to get their operations. The CBC's Leah Hendry has that story.
Jaya Leela Payet used to manage her juvenile arthritis with medication, but about a year ago, the drugs stopped working. And last fall, x-rays showed her hips had deteriorated faster than expected.
The bones of my hips were totally crushed together.
Her specialist referred her to an orthopedic surgeon, but she still hasn't received a consultation, which means she isn't even on the surgery wait list yet.
I call every week crying, almost screaming because I cannot endure the pain anymore.
Unable to work since last fall, Payet has become increasingly housebound. She relies on her family to run errands and do chores around the apartment.
I'm afraid for her mental health too, because being in bed all the time like that is not what a person her age should be living right now.
Desperate, Payet decided to have the surgery done privately. It will cost $35,000 to have both hips replaced. They're trying to raise the money with a GoFundMe campaign.
I want to have my freedom again, to do my choice, to do activities, to travel, to go back to work. So that
Payet's dire situation isn't unusual.
Just getting even worse, and even more people every week are going to private surgery to get their surgery done.
Increased demand means more surgeons are working in both the public and private system, like Dr. Adam Hart. He started during the pandemic.
Yeah, it was out of pure frustration.
In the public system, Hart said he's limited to 1 or 2 days of surgery a week. The backlog has created 2 waiting lists for him, one for a consultation and another for the surgery itself. His surgery wait list is 400 days.
If I saw all my consults in my inbox, then my wait list would be, it'd be like multiple years long. So I limit the number of new patients, new consults that I see.
Payet didn't want to wait any longer. Her surgery is scheduled for April, and she's excited about getting her life back. Leah Hendry, CBC News, Montreal.
For decades, the Olympics have faced the problem of athletes using performing-enhancing drugs. But what if it wasn't a problem? What if there was competition where currently banned substances were allowed, even embraced? If that sounds far-fetched, check out this report from the CBC's Jamie Strachan.
Canada's figure skating team in Beijing played by the rules.
But even after a doping scandal, they were beat out by Russia.
Why have I done this my whole life cleanly and correctly, the right way?
The enhanced games are real.
Now a new company's trying to change the game.
We want athletes who have the potential to break world records and give them the opportunity to push the limits of humanity.
I am the fastest man in the world.
Self-described as the Olympics of the future, the enhanced games would allow athletes under clinical supervision to take substances currently banned.
I don't think that athletes want to be the fastest natural man in the world. They just want to be the fastest.
Backed by big money, including PayPal founder Peter Thiel, it's also promising substantial compensation. But would any athlete actually participate?
As far as my athletic peak, history says that it's behind me. The enhanced games say it's not. Let's find out.
32-year-old Australian swimmer and Olympic silver medalist James Magnussen is the biggest name to express interest.
I'm going to do this with the best doctors and medical professionals in the world to make sure that I'm doing it safely and properly.
But most in the sporting world have ridiculed the idea.
I think it's a horrific message.
Including the head of Canada's anti-doping agency.
There may be challenges or possibilities for improvement to the anti-doping regime. The answer to that is not to throw it away and suggest people compete using drugs.
We've cut through the water with unmatched speed.
Others call the idea preposterous, although it's hoped the potential competition forces the IOC to give athletes a greater financial stake in the Olympics.
I really hope that what we are starting to think about is how we reward our Olympic athletes.
The enhanced games will feature events like swimming and track and promises an inaugural games in 2025. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Toronto.
More than 1 million Canadians are now estimated to play pickleball, but that rise in popularity also means a rise in injuries. The CBC's Lauren Pelly reports.
We are getting ready for the first ever Golden Bachelor Pickleball Championship.
It's a sport now hot enough to make it to a primetime TV hit.
Just have to wonder if the ankle injury is slowing April down.
And with pickleball's rising popularity, there's also been a rise in injuries.
I haven't been so injured in all the sports I've played throughout my life.
Steve Deacon got a bad wrist injury in 2021, but he kept on playing.
And the rehab was so long. It was 14 months. It was painful.
American research suggests injuries rose rapidly in recent years, and the majority were among adults 60 and up.
If an older adult hasn't played any sport and hasn't done any conditioning, they're going to have weaker bones, they're going to have weaker muscles, they're going to have lower muscle mass.
Dr. Alexandra Rendley says tripping, falling, and lunging can all lead to injuries, from wrist sprains to hip fractures.
So what are the most common injuries on someone's body when they're playing pickleball?
The lower leg is one of the most common areas. The calf, the foot and ankle, sometimes the Achilles tendon at the back. Next common would be the upper body, so things like the wrist, the elbow. Lastly would really be like the back. So if you're bending and reaching, you can end up with back pain. But I'd say foot, ankle, most common, followed by wrist.
So how do you prevent pickleball injuries from happening in the first place? Well, we hit the court to find out.
So first you want to get a feel for pickleball.
Jenny Davis is head pro at The Jar, an aptly named pickleball club in Toronto. She says a few minutes of dynamic warm-ups are essential before you start a game.
Just a little bit of stretching to warm up your body, especially if you don't come from an athletic background playing other sports.
She also recommends proper footwear and learning safe ways to move around the court.
So when a ball goes over your head here, I want you to pivot here and then sidestep. Take your time.
Practice makes perfect.
What I say to people is no ball is worth a fall.
While the risks do exist, coaches and doctors both say staying active at any age is a good thing. So it's never too late to try a new sport. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
It's getting easier to get your hands on an electric vehicle. There's more supply, but there may be other roadblocks holding consumers back. Nisha Patel went to Toronto's auto show to check things out.
Electric vehicle price tags still give many consumers sticker shock.
It costs too much if the battery goes. It's a quarter of the cost of the car.
One of the cheapest new options costs a little more than $42,000. It's being shipped to provinces where demand is higher because of government rebates.
The vehicle will be available initially in British Columbia and Quebec to take advantage of the most aggressive EV incentives in the country.
The Atlantic provinces and the Yukon also offer rebates, and there's a $5,000 federal incentive that helps bring down the cost of buying an EV. Even then, most EVs are still more expensive than vehicles that run on gas.
As more and more electric vehicles are sold, we would expect that costs would follow as well.
The pressure is on for traditional automakers to offer more affordable options. Chinese company BYD is making moves to launch in North America. Its models are priced at less than $20,000 in Asia. BYD already outsells Tesla globally. For now, advocates say consumers need to look beyond the price tag and factor in fuel savings and incentives.
But they're not doing the math on how much the total cost of ownership is. And if you do that math, you'll see that actually driving an EV is almost always cheaper.
The initial spike in electric vehicle sales was fueled by early adopters eager to switch. But it'll be harder to convince mainstream consumers to take EVs for a spin.
Well, until I start seeing more charging stations, I think I would probably wait.
I don't think, to me, they're quite up to snuff yet for the market. They need more time.
Automakers, though, don't have long to phase out cars and trucks that run on gas. The federal government says that all new vehicles sold must be zero emission by 2035. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Canada's main stock index was down slightly today, and U.S. markets also fell as investors continue to make guesses about when central banks on either side of the border will start cutting interest rates. Here's a look at the numbers. All right, we were just talking about wood stoves and heating, and some people tonight, into tomorrow, beginning part of tomorrow at least, are going to be needing those things top notch, full fire tonight.
For sure. Listen, it's the fail-safe to say, but another log on the fire tonight, an extra log on the fire.
You'll have another one on, won't you?
Yeah, for sure. Or an extra blanket on the bed. Definitely going to be a cold one tonight. Let's have a look at our viewer picture of the day, and this one, a beautiful one from the South Shore. And I dare say that it's going to be a very similar look to the morning tomorrow in the Dublin Shore region.
Oh, isn't that nice? Wow.
Yeah. Terrific sunrise there, or at least just before sunrise. Thanks to Deborah Croft for sharing this. Ryan's Picks at cbc.ca. And yeah, looking at the temperature outlook for tomorrow morning, again, it is going to be widespread minus 15 to minus 18. We'll be into the minus 20 to 25 range, low-lying areas of the north and east, but we recover really nicely tomorrow. Terrific mid to late winter afternoon, and we're pushing that way now, Tom, as tomorrow is about a month from spring. So you can see we've got Thursday, some clouds and some light snow pushing its way into the region. We'll see that snow mixed with a bit of ice pellets as we do turn the page into that Thursday afternoon time frame. There again is the precipitation maker that will be kind of edging in along the Atlantic coastline. It does look like snow, some ice pellets, some patchy freezing rain. Not a big precip maker, more of just a nuisance in terms of timing. And then all eyes will be on that weekend warm-up, which we'll be focusing on in greater detail over the next few days.
Okay, thanks for that, Ryan. Well, the hockey rink has many attractions, of course. The ice cleaning, probably not one of them, at least at most places. When Wisconsin driver Rob Podock fires up the Zamboni, though, he has company. 7-year-old Penny and 2-year-old Jersey are fixtures with a measure of celebrity status.
And they have other duties. Once the ice is finished, they test it out.
Okay.
And they help clean debris from the stands, to spill popcorn at least. Podock turned each dog into a rink rat at about 7 weeks.
Put them on the payroll, I say.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's it for us tonight. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Good night.